What's up, folks? How'd it going? Hello, Kathy. Welcome aboard. Alright, we're just getting going. Good to see you. I'm doing good reaction. Hope you're doing well. We'll definitely get to some thoughts soon. Just waiting to see what's happening. A few people coming in. Some people tipping in and tipping out. Hello, Jude. Traffic man is here. How you doing? All right. All right. Welcome, one and all. Good evening, traffic man. I was I was just playing some uh, royalty-free music because I read up on music that you're allowed to play live, and I was allegedly breaking the rules. So I figured I wouldn't take a chance because they will ban your channel if you play copyrighted music. So I found some royalty-free music and did slight edits. They had a couple more. They had about a minute more of this 5 minute song, but I cut out a couple of the slow parts, and I like it. I like it. I'll be downloading more royalty-free music to entertain us all and all that good stuff. So um, tonight, my topic is just generic. Hello, Jeannie. My topic is generic. It's real talk. It's real talk part two because real talk one yesterday we never actually got to the stuff that I had planned to talk about, which was perfectly fine with me because the conversation went in really interesting directions. So I was good with that. And tonight might be a short live. Not sure yet. I'm hoping that I'll catch a second wind for whatever reason. I didn't sleep that well last night, or maybe not long enough, whatever it is. I'm just a little more tired than usual, but that is a first world problem. So, B Action, you've been making some interesting comments in the comment section. So if you'd like, please feel free to come up and we can talk about what is on your mind. And I'll bring up some other folks as well. Again, if you feel like coming up, don't feel any pressure. Jeannie, I just sent you an invitation. Traffic Man, I sent you an invitation. And for those of you who are coming in, please remember to do the heart me. What's going on, Traffic Man?
Good evening. How are you tonight?
I'm good. A little sluggish for some reason, but we are decaying meat sacks, so anything is possible, right?
Yes.
So we have a guest, B Action. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Actually, my name's Beth, so I'd
Beth.
use my actual name instead of just my handle on TikTok.
Nice. Well, welcome. I don't believe we've ever spoken before.
No, we haven't.
All right.
I think I'm following you,
Excellent.
but no, I've never come on.
Well, I am absolutely thrilled that you chose tonight to come up. You just made another comment. We're in extraordinary times, and I would generically agree with you. But I'd love to hear your take on what extraordinary means to you.
Um, wow, that's I think as a country and just as, you know, members of the human society. Um, Citizens of the world, I think we're at a pivotal time and it's exciting and it's concerning. I think it's important that we recognize each other's humanity and not allow our government or anyone to divide us. Um, I guess that's kind
Well,
of where I'm at.
I like that overarching sentiment for sure. I'd love to drill down with you a little bit on that, because again, I think we are generically on the same page, but I don't want to make any assumptions about your meaning. So that's interesting. Huh. So when you say exciting times and dark times, So, which is the exciting part to you?
Well, the exciting part to me is I'm 62 years old
Hmm.
and I'm thinking my air conditioner just kicked on and I'm outside. Let me move a little bit.
Oh no, you're fine.
Um, I yeah, I come from a union family. I'm fifth generation UAW, but I've only been a member of a union since 2013.
Hmm.
And I recognized a lot of division in the union, and I hate to admit it, but it's just true. There was a lot of corruption in the union. And so I felt like in 2013, 14, 15, I was dealing with my first contract. And I recognized a lot of division among the membership. And so just started drilling down and doing some research. And um, I started feeling like, wow, this union is kind of like a microcosm of the United States.
Hmm.
And then I started getting more interested in politics and history, world history, US history, world history. And I thought, wow, more like a microcosm of the world. Um, unions say, united we stand, divided we fall. And I think that's true for every union, not just UAW. I think workers and probably all of them
I mean,
have that
it's
same
like
motto.
literally implied in the name of union, right? So yeah, I totally get that. Yeah. So, I'm 61, by the way, and so
Wow.
I'm guessing that some of our cultural references are going to be very similar. So, I definitely get the excitement of what you just described. What do you think categorizes or things that are in the category of dark times?
I think it's important that we resist despair.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I think um, bad news obviously sells. I mean, we're the same age. Remember when, we weren't attached to a cell phone
Hmm. I do.
and to the internet 24/7
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We were busy with other shit. Yeah.
news 24/7.
Right.
Remember nine
Yeah,
eleven for me is
yeah,
when.
news used to go off at 11:35. That was it. That was the end of it.
How did you respond to the news after 9/11?
Probably no differently than I did before. I was in the city that day, so I have a lot of vivid memories of that. Um, but I can't say that my orientation to the news changed at all because of that. I'd probably have to
You
think about that more deeply to come up with a better answer, but just
Were
generically
you actually
speaking,
in New York?
yeah, I was in the city. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's a big
Whenever I
that's
say
a
the
big difference.
city, it's I always mean New York. Yeah. So,
Okay, okay.
let me just one thing that I've trained myself to do over the decades is hear what people are trying not to say. And I hear you speaking
Yes.
very carefully, and I appreciate that you choose your words carefully, but it feels like there's something that you want to say that you're not saying.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. maybe if there's something that I'm not saying, I I just think that it's so important that the message of hope outweighs, um, where we've been at for quite some time.
Yeah. I feel that, and that's what I was sensing is that you were trying to stay positive, and I certainly appreciate that. I'm open to all sentiments. I'm open to disagreement or all that other stuff, but I definitely understand when someone is essentially just trying to preserve their sanity and trying to preserve their spirit. So I won't pressure you to say anything that you don't want to say, but I do appreciate your contribution. And I want to take
There
this
is one
moment.
other thing that
Oh, go ahead, please.
one other thing, I guess, because you're drilling down on me a little bit, and so I'm thinking. Um, I think that we're in the most dangerously divisive time, um, well, definitely in my lifetime or within my memory.
Sure,
I
sure.
don't know, Vietnam was, you know
I mean, I think if we go literal, I would have to say this is just my opinion that the Civil War, so, sorry, Civil WAR, because TikTok
Yeah,
doesn't want us to speak like adults, was probably more divided.
crazy
But
stuff.
I also think that you're onto something in terms of the potential for further division. Because I'm a big believer that America has never been united. I never refer to America as the United States because of that belief. But before we continue, I want to say a couple things. We're getting more
Okay.
people in here. I'm already fascinated by this conversation, and I know other people probably are too. Meredith, hello. Thank you for the gifts. Tammy, thank you for the gifts. But let's get the likes up. Let's get tapping on that screen. Generally speaking, we like to hit around 50,000 likes per hour. So we're definitely behind that pace right now. So anybody listening to this that's enjoying this, please tap the screen. Please do the heart me, your daily heart me. That's always great. And again, before I continue, I'd like to welcome Zaza. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm wonderful, wonderful. A little lower energy than I normally am, but I'm an inherently lazy person, so that's kind of on brand for me. But
Hey, I
I am
enjoy my
enjoying
laziness.
I am enjoying first world luxuries like air conditioning and clean running water. So I really don't have anything substantial to complain about. But how are you?
I'm good. I had a doctor appointment today for my heart. I have not had an episode since 2022. So,
Excellent.
yay.
What kind of episode did you have, if you feel comfortable sharing it?
So I have a condition called Brugada syndrome, and it's kind of like the best way I can explain it is that it's like almost like ventricular tachycardia, but it's
Okay.
almost like a cardiac arrest at the same time. So it's like a heart attack. My heart goes too fast, and then my defibrillator tries to shock it back into a normal episode. That's what I mean when I say episode, like so it shocks it back. So what happens is like my blood pressure drops and my ears start ringing. I feel very lightheaded
Wow.
and then I faint. But I'm not totally unconscious, and my defibrillator will kick my heart back into a normal rhythm, and it hurts like a son of a bitch.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
Wow. So 3 years since that's happened.
Yes. So,
Excellent.
yay.
Excellent. Congratulations to you. That's fantastic. I was born with a heart murmur, but the doctors were completely wrong about their prognosis. They said I'd never be able to run around and play and be athletic and all that stuff, and that's all I was growing up. So, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that your health is showing signs of consistent improvement. That's a wonderful thing. Rumbles, thank you so
Yeah.
much for the roses. And I do have a rose goal of 100. So anyone that wants to get around to throw in some coins into the live, I'd much appreciate it. Oh, look at Traffic Man doing his thing. You're the best, dude. Thank you. I call this Real Talk 2 because last night I labeled it Real Talk, but we literally never got around to the subjects that I wanted to talk about or that I had planned to talk about, which is fine. I'm very tangential when it comes to conversation, so wherever it goes, it goes. Hi, CompuBear, I see you. How you doing? So tonight I just, I said, oh well, since I didn't talk about anything last night, I'll just say it's Real Talk 2. But again, I don't really care where the conversation goes. And so far, we have heard from someone who's basically saying, Beth, right? Was basically
Yes.
talking about some of the good things going on, some of the negative things going on, very gently and very diplomatically, and I appreciate that. And I echo those sentiments. I mean, I believe in that tale of two cities kind of thing, where the opening sentence for that book is, "It was the worst of times, it was the best of times," or vice versa. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So
Yep.
I do believe that that's everybody's life. I do believe that that's always going on in societies. That's why I feel very comfortable and confident saying that America has never been united, because I've asked people for decades now to name a time where they felt America was united, and nobody can ever do it. And any examples that they give are always wrong, right? Like one, you mentioned 9/11 earlier, and that's one of the most popular answers that I get, is that after 9/11 we were united. And I was like, no, we weren't. Just ask people from the Middle East, and they will tell you that they did not feel very welcome here. Okay. And these are people that had nothing to do with
Yep.
anything, but because a lot of mouth breathing, knuckle dragging troglodytes who are homeschooled sister fuckers get angry very
Eloquently
easily,
stated, yo.
and so, there were people from the Middle East that they saw violence go up dramatically against them. So that doesn't count. I mean, December of 2012, the mass casualty event that happened in Jersey, where 20 children ages 6 and 7 were taken from the
Mm.
earth by a psychopath, and that didn't bring America together. So that's when I lost hope.
Shamefully.
That's when I lost hope for the idea of a unifying event. I don't see it at all. Hello, Jude. How you doing?
So did our president, yo.
How are you?
I
How you
am
doing?
excellent. Welcome. Hope CompuBear also
Just
wants
to
to come up.
I don't mean to correct you, but the casualty event you're talking about was in Connecticut, because I live in Jersey. You're
Are we
talking about
talking about Sandy?
Sandy
Are
Hook,
we
right?
allowed to say?
Oh, I thought Sandy Hook was Jersey. Thank you for the
No,
correction. Appreciate it.
that was Connecticut.
So what else is on your mind?
Me, I was listening to your conversation and just chilling, trying to stay out of that crazy lives for people, beating
Yeah,
each
I
other
mean,
over the
it
head.
can get crazy in here, but mostly it doesn't. So
No, I've been on a couple of panels with you, so
cool.
I kind of knew what to expect.
Excellent. Excellent.
Is this typical?
For me, I guess you'd have to ask other people. It kind of goes
I
all over
was
the
kind of
place.
asking.
Yeah,
I was
yeah. So,
asking
so
him.
Traffic Man, Jude, CompuBear, you all can answer whether this is typical or not.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
it's the first time I'm actually on your live, so
Gotcha. Okay. So
I'm gonna find out what's typical.
yes. So traffic man, you
from
were
my
saying?
yeah, no, typically things don't get out of hand in this live, and it's a breath of fresh air because the screaming and yelling, that I can only take so much of that. And Yoda's always been, uh, Yoda's always had wonderful lives.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I like to humiliate MAGA hats quietly, but I do like to humiliate MAGA hats. So
Well,
there is
amen.
there is a certain aggression that comes from me, but I tend to try to keep it under wraps. I'm not always as successful doing that on other people's lives. There have been times that I've lost my shit at someone who was just so, because the thing that bothers me, and I don't want to belabor the point, but people's um just lack of compassion about other human beings, that sometimes gets under my skin, even though it's very on
Thank you
brand for
very
America.
much.
Yeah, it's very on brand for America. This is how it's always been here. And for the people that don't believe that, I'm glad that you didn't experience that. But for a big swath of the population, we know the cruelty that is contained in this country because we've seen it firsthand. But you know, aside from those spikes in my emotions, most of the time I happen to sort of revel in unraveling a MAGA hat very quietly and very methodically because it's easy. They're not smart, and they're distracted by shiny things. you know so I know how to confound them, and I usually do, and it's almost like a hobby of mine on TikTok. But I try, and so do my panelists, and so do the people in the commentary. For the most part, we try to keep it intellectual, and even when we're feeling emotional, we try to express ourselves in a reasonable way. But again, I'm not here to tone police anybody. I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. I just basically hope that people resonate with whatever energy I have and, contribute likewise.
I'd like to raise another topic to you,
Please.
Yoda. It's along the same line, but George Floyd. Now, I want to be completely transparent. I'm a 62-year-old YT woman, okay? And I was pretty ignorant about really the United States past. I just wasn't interested when I was in school, and I got interested when I got this union job. And then I was confused that I didn't think that union members would be standing in a circle, holding hands, singing kumbaya. I wasn't that naive, but I mean, I recognized it as being really divided, and it was a Shark Tank. And I thought, well, I didn't think union jobs were supposed to be like this. But a really good friend of mine at work, we became fast friends in 2013, 2014 during contract negotiations. He's a very black man, and he educated me. He educated me about the United States and about the Union, and he informed me. And if anyone else at this time had said it to me, I wouldn't have believed him. But because of the relationship that we had, I just trusted him implicitly. And he told me, yeah, racism in the United States is as American as apple pie and Chevrolet.
Yeah, even more
And
so because it's older
because
than
I
the both
didn't
of
feel
those
that
things.
way, right? And and because I'm not like that. I was never like that. I just, I didn't recognize it.
Yeah, it wasn't part of
And
your
then I
world,
did
so that's
recognize it.
perfectly understandable.
And Yoda, I cannot tell you. I mean, even to this day, and I just don't think that my white friends, my white tea, sorry, I don't feel understood by them. I care. It bothers me a lot. I honestly, I think I had PTSD over George Floyd because I watched it
Yeah.
over and over and over, every angle of it. And I imagined, and I like to think, and this is going to sound probably sound weird. I like to think that if I'd been there that day, that I would have motivated the people around me. He's unaliving him. Let's, maybe it'll cost us our lives. We have to act. We can't just watch. We can't just record it.
Yeah. Well,
And I don't
first of all,
know if
thank
I
you
would have
everybody
had the
for hitting the
courage
live
to.
goal. But I'm sorry, go ahead. You don't know what?
Well, I don't know if I'd actually had the courage to in the moment,
Yeah, there's no way of
if I
knowing.
would have been frozen or, yeah, it's just so heartbreaking. And I don't understand why everybody that I associate with was not as outraged and heartbroken and awakened by that event.
Well, I'm gonna take a oh wait, there's some noise coming through. I'm gonna take what's gonna sound like a hard left turn to address part of what you said because I
Okay.
think it's instructive to do so.
Okay.
Um, Carl Perkins was on the Johnny Carson show, well, the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, probably in
Okay.
the '80s, and Johnny asked him a simple question, which is, do you let your children watch your films? And he said, no, I don't. And Johnny said, is it because you think they'd be scared? He said, no, it's because I think that when it happens in real life, they won't be scared enough. Right. And I think that's part of why people tend to freeze. I mean, there's a lot of psychology that goes into what happens with crowds, but what sometimes happens is that this is a society that is particularly desensitized to violence. And that can come in a lot of ways. There are societies that are constantly having conflicts, and so they've become desensitized to a certain degree. And in the case of America, I think that since it's so prevalent in entertainment that people have become desensitized to it when it happens in real life. And also there's a few psychological principles that come into play with, crowd think and mob mentality, that kind of stuff. So it is possible you would have acted. It's possible you wouldn't have. We'll never know. Because of 9/11, I do have an idea of what I would do in a high pressure situation because I did it. And, I was actually happy with the decisions that I made, which were contrary to the decisions of the crowd, especially the decision to walk over a bridge. I thought that was the dumbest thing that anyone did that day because they didn't know if the conflict was over. They didn't know if there was more coming. And they decided to put themselves on a bridge, on a couple of bridges, where they would have no chance of escape if anything else happened. And so I remember thinking, yeah, that's not the position that I want to be in. So when I'm in high pressure situations, I tend to go into solution mode. That doesn't necessarily mean that I would rescue another human being. I would like to think that I would, but I don't know. That's never been a situation that I've been in. But when you brought up George Floyd, I think you said you might have a question around that, so I don't know if you asked it or not.
Um, I I don't know that I actually had a question
Okay.
about it.
Because you said
Um,
you wanted to ask me something, but that's fine. That's fine. I find that, and by the way, I never watched What Happened to George Floyd on purpose.
neither did my friend that I was referencing
Yeah, and by the
because
way, I
he
absolutely
said I
love
can only take so much.
yeah, I love the fact that you described him as a very black man, and I'm guessing that means he's very dark skinned.
Well, I mean, I've seen darker skin, many much darker skin, but I
So
mean, he
somewhere
is
south of Miles
undoubtedly,
Davis, basically.
yeah,
Gotcha. Because
yeah,
Miles is as dark
yeah.
as it got.
He's a
Tucker
proud
makes what's
black
up?
man.
Yeah, well, whatever that means. But
Well, it
cool.
just means he's firmly rooted in his identity in our society as a black man, and I kind of think the same about you.
Yeah, I certainly don't feel that, and I don't ever describe myself that way because I had no choice in the matter. I didn't decide to be born the way I was. I'm happy about it. I love waking up the perfect color every day and never having to look at skin that looks like uncooked chicken, but that's just my thing.
Exactly. I refer to myself as pasty, you know.
Yeah. And I particularly find it ironic that hordes of racists every year when the summer comes lay out so that they can get darker skin. And if that doesn't work, they pay to go into a booth to darken their skin. But all the other, in every other case, if someone's born with that skin, they don't like it. It's kind of funny.
I'm pale
Um,
enough. I have to protect myself.
The president.
The
yeah.
president.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm not sure how to say that. Soph. How do you say your name? Oh, I might.
Sought out.
Is that what that says? Sought out.
I believe so.
I think I might have muted you, so I'll send an invite to unmute. There we go. You can hopefully unmute yourself now. Sought out.
I have a question for you, Yoda.
Sure.
Where did where do you hail from? Where did you grow up?
In my town. What's your question?
No, when you were young,
Yeah.
where you,
What's your question?
no, I was just wondering where like I'm from Newark, New Jersey, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up too far from the city.
Gotcha.
You mentioned that you were in the city,
Yes. Oops. Wait.
so I've been in New Jersey all my life.
That's weird. Your box disappeared, but I still hear you. I don't know what happened there. So yeah, basically, I grew up in Washington Heights, New York City,
So you
and I'm glad
grew
I
up in the
did.
Heights.
It
Huh?
was a very diverse neighborhood. It was a very it takes a village to raise a child kind of neighborhood. Like all of the adults in the neighborhood were allowed to snatch us up if we were acting stupid and
Right.
even discipline us if it was real bad. And then that would be the double whammy because you got you know snatched up by the neighbor lady, and then she called my mother, and then I'd get snatched up when I got home. But what was great about that is that, and of course I didn't figure this out until I was older, but what a great neighborhood to grow up in, where like when we were out and about, if we looked up at the buildings, all of the neighbor ladies were either sitting on their fire escape or in their windowsill looking out after us to make sure that we were okay. And that's pretty cool. Nothing ever happened to children in that neighborhood. And plus, the Heights was and still is a very colorful place. It's got every walk of life, basically, as far as like, paupers and kings and everything in between. You know, um,
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
that's
it
pretty
was.
common.
I'm thrilled that I grew up there because when I moved out of there, and especially when I was 9, when I first moved out, we moved to Elmhurst, Queens, which was almost the same, except
Yeah.
the building there weren't as many tall buildings, and there were more Asians. That was the only real differences that I noticed, but everything else was exactly the same as the Heights. And but then when I was 9, we moved to Long Island, and that's where my world came crashing down because
Wow.
I was the lone pepper
Culture
in a
shock.
sea of salt at that point, and it
A
stunk.
culture shock. A
Yeah,
culture shock.
it was awful. It was really awful. But yeah, Newark Newark went through its own stuff. I know, what was it, 67? There was a riot there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
How old were you when you wound up in a sea of salt that
9.
sucked?
I was 9. It was yeah, my life changed radically at that point. And I had to face a lot of ugliness, a lot of racism, a lot of physical threats, and I had to fight a lot. But I was used to fighting from the heights, so that wasn't that big a deal. But what I noticed was that the culture was just very different. In that, I actually had this conversation with a MAGA hat on a live like months ago. I've been doing lives for about a year now, and I was trying to tell him that YT is not a race, right? Because there's no country of white, right? There's no, it's not like that's, it's just a word that people used to perpetuate racism,
Yep.
and he didn't get that. He was trying to tell me that his lineage was YT, and I'm like, yeah, you need to like dig into your ancestry a little bit more thoroughly because there's no such thing as what you're talking about. And that was one of the things that I noticed. That it was like on Long Island, it was a variety of YT folks, and they were all segmented. There was Jewish people, Italian people, Irish people, German people. And that's when I started to realize that America is a cultureless culture, and I think to its detriment. It doesn't have the same kind of thing going on that other countries have that are more homogenized. And when you look at countries that are mostly homogenized, they tend to do way better at a lot of different things.
Well,
I will tell you.
we're
Oh,
not a monolithic society in
Right,
America.
right, right.
Yeah.
I will tell you. Growing up in the Greek culture, surrounded by many many immigrants, there was this sense of keeping the culture alive, so on and so forth. And and how you described about how the Italians were over here, so on and so forth. That was prevalent where I'm from. And then, as I got a little older and we moved to the township and I started going to school here, there that identity of where you came from, of your culture, went away. And it was just people like students around me when I started talking about Greek this, or the Greek fest we had, or this and that, there was everybody else was like I was an alien. You know what I mean? Like it was so odd to them that there was so much um, history intertwined into my upbringing, if you will, from our past, and for them it was just nothing.
Yeah, and that's one of the ironies of descendants of immigrants that are mad at other immigrants in America.
So
100%.
when you get a chance, Yoda, I have a question to,
Go ahead.
well, kind of a sneak question. So you asked the question, when was there a time in recent memory, right?
I
That
actually
we
didn't say recent, but I saw that you said the 70s.
Well, it's part of the 70. What I was going to say, I think part of the, but really, I think the time that I think we really came together was after the first Gulf War and after Bosnia, when we had been successful as a country. Some people say it wasn't necessarily successful in the Gulf War, but we got out and we won our objective. And in the Bosnia War, WAR, it was the same way. We had succeeded, right? We succeeded with what we would plan on accomplishing, and we weren't in really any conflicts at the time. People of color were having a lot more opportunities, especially in the tech industry. I can't say about other things, but I know from the tech industry, people of color were having a lot more ability to rise up in it and be competitive and be in there. And I think it was a time when we really kind of all came together because we felt like we were accomplishing something. Even as a world, I mean, there was very few wars at that time. Once we got finished with that, there was very few aggressions. We had a good economic system at that time. Trickle down economics had not taken its effect at that point in our culture, in our lives, in the world lives. And I think that as economically we were really doing well. So I think that was kind of the time we came together the best. But that is just my feeling.
Yeah, and I can't tell you that you're wrong. I can tell you that I certainly don't see it the same way, because I remember that time frame, and to me, who has opportunities and jobs and all that, that's all well and good, but that has nothing to do with unity as far as I'm concerned. With cultural unity, I I to this day experience racism. I mean, I've had people on panels as recently as like yesterday or the day before call me the N-word. So,
No.
that stuff never slowed down for me. It never changed for me. There was never a time when minorities felt the way you're describing. So that's part of the disunity, is that, again, everybody's experience is subjective. That's why I can't tell anybody that they're wrong in what they're saying. But when you're a minority in America, you have a different perspective than everybody else does, because your existence in America is different. Just on the face of it, it's different, but then in practical everyday reality, it's different. I mean, redlining, which is a racist function, was outlawed in 1985, and yet some bank got pinched for it around like 2000 or something like that, not too long ago. And I don't want to say the name of the bank in case I get it wrong, but it was a big bank, and they got pinched for indulging in a racist practice that had been made illegal at least 15 years prior, or not, more than 15 years. What am I saying?
And
20,
I'm not
25,
and I'm
35
not
years
Well, I
prior.
mean,
and I'm
So,
not saying that it's not coming back, right? I felt like that was like the peak of where we were. I don't know, as a civilization, right? We weren't at war. There was a lot of opportunity for a lot of people, and you're right. I can't see it from a minority view because I'm anything but. But it just seemed to me that that was the height of our coalescence as a unity, as a as the United States, if not the world, because we were much more at peace, and economically wise, I think everybody was better off. I could be totally wrong, and you're right. I'm not the one to do it. I'm no wouldn't be surprised if people are getting called that word, the N word, more now than ever before. We're going backwards. We're tremendously going backwards,
well,
and I'm
here's
not
the
saying I'm
thing.
wrong.
It could be spiking now, but honestly, from my perspective, it's the same as it ever was. I never saw this come together era that people point to. And again, just my perspective. And even though people are giving me the name of the bank in the chat, I'm still not going to say it for legal purposes. I don't want anybody suing me, because I don't know what happened to the case. But um,
well, I will tell you, we're still in my community. I mean, we still see the echoes of the past of redlining. I mean, it's still the very, how do I want to put it? I don't want to say the poor areas, but you know what I mean. The more impoverished areas
yeah,
are people of color. We have a lot of people from the south of the border, which I'm perfectly fine with them living anywhere they live. But it's you drive around my town and you can go, "Well, that's the YT neighborhood." That's the African American neighborhood. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
And you
most of
can
those
feel it
neighborhoods are
before you
all.
see it. You can feel it in the whether you're driving over a smooth road or a bumpy one. You can you
I
can,
can't confirm nor deny that because I work for the government.
but
And I
you
would
know
say
But
that
you're
a
not
lot of
wrong.
that
No, you're not
is the
wrong.
tax base, right? So wherever there's more taxes, chances are the
Well,
roads are going to be smoother.
if I may, and listen to kind of give some credence to that. I'm not going to name any neighborhoods or anything, but we have a very prominent YT historic neighborhood in our town, and they have enough influence to where we have other neighborhoods that are less off than they are, where they had gotten light poles. They're decorative light poles throughout the neighborhood. There's 164 of them. They were refurbished about 15, 20 years ago. So they're looking a little aged now. There's a little bit of rust here and there, but there's other neighborhoods where I'm telling you, like the light poles are falling over kind of thing. And to our surprise, about 3 or 4 years ago, we were instructed to go spend all this money in refurbishing this very well off neighborhood's poles because how could our neighborhood look so bad? And I'm sitting here and I looked at my boss and I went, but we have like 400 other light poles that need replaced over here and here and here. And I don't want to say where he was coming from was that it's just the influence was, well, we
Yeah.
need to take care of these people first.
Same as it ever
And I
was,
don't like
man.
that. It
That's a tale
is.
as old as time. And it's funny. My second ex-wife and I usually get together once or twice a year for lunch or dinner or something. And she came up a few months ago, and this was the first time that she had uh, driven to my neighborhood for us to meet. And it's only because I gave away my car last October. I don't drive anymore. So, when she got here, I said, I'm going to show you something about how this area works. And I said, I'm going to take you to one road and we're going to drive north on that road. And you're going to tell me when you see the differences in the neighborhood, right? Because like literally it's almost like passing through the portal to Narnia at some point. Like
Right.
you start off in the shitty neighborhood and the roads are all fucked up, and then you do this one crest where you're in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the area, and suddenly
Mhm.
it all looks and it is palpably different on every level. The roads are smoother, the stores are nicer, the homes are nicer, everything you could just tell. And this is the
Yeah.
reality. I mean, this is the only country in the world that bases their education system on tax revenue. It's
Right.
insane.
Right.
So
Well,
this message is pervasive throughout American society.
and I will tell you, the one thing that made me so, like I've said before, I'm in charge of my department and everything now. And in one of those more impoverished neighborhoods, we have started changing the light poles from the 1950s out with a more modern pole.
Wow.
And basically, all I can do is set aside maybe enough money to maybe do 5 to 6 poles a year. And we were out there earlier this year changing out one of these poles, and this very very elderly woman comes out of her house and she yells out, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And we said, "Oh, we're updating this, that, and the other." And she looks at us and she's like, "Are you serious?" And we're like, "Yeah, I mean, these, you guys need to be taken care of too." And she she got very emotional over that because she's like, "That's amazing." And that interaction right there, I know anecdotal and all that, but that
It
interaction right there
speaks
kind of made me
volumes.
feel. Yes, yes, 100%.
So I got a question. Is that an East Coast thing versus a West Coast thing? Now, mind you, I've only been to the East Coast a couple of times, and that was back in 1976. So I haven't been there much more recent than
I
that.
I'm in the
It,
Midwest.
I mean, my
so
opinion is that it's an American thing because I hear this.
It's everywhere.
Because of my sales career, I've spoken to people from all over the world, but certainly all over America, and I have not heard anything different anywhere. There's a clear division and it starts from the top down. Like I shared this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of years ago. I don't fucking know. I've lost all track of time. But um, I used to think that the top level of American society was government. And then in the last 20 or so years, I realized, oh no, that's not the hierarchy in America. It's the wealth class at the top and then the government. Right? And the government, as George Carlin said, is only there to give you the illusion of choice. See, what they have conditioned us to identify as choice is mostly revolving around meaningless choices. Like, you can go get 31 different flavors at Baskin Robbins. So, ooh, look at all the choices I have, right? You can decide whether you want Peter Paul almond joy or Mars, because one's got almonds, one doesn't. You know, so there's all these meaningless choices that make us feel like we live in this society with vast possibility, but in the reality, there's a narrow band of existence that we're allowed to have here, and you know life changes radically as your income changes. And some of that is kind of obvious, but some of it is not to me. Like healthcare, I think it's crazy to have that be dependent on how much money you make.
Or what job you have.
Yeah,
or how much money you don't make. And I have to throw that in there
exactly.
because people who are,
Mhm.
and I have been for most of my life right on that very edge, right? Where I make just enough to not qualify for Medicaid or any other benefits. I mean, $65 more than benefits, right?
That's
And yet
stupid.
I'm not making enough money to pay for my health insurance because it's so expensive. Yeah, at one time it was $1,500, and a month was my
Hmm.
for me and my children, which when you're making only $65 a month more than Medicaid, you can't afford $1,500,
Right.
and only 50% of the employers in the United States pay for health insurance. If you're rich enough, then you can pay that 1,500. You can pay whatever and have the best health insurance. So it's those people that are kind of right in that middle that really kind of are stuck.
And that's
It's why
part of the
I'm going to work
scam
until
of,
I'm unalive.
yeah, me too. And that's part of the scam of like telling people that now to qualify they have to work, because as soon as they start working they're going to not be qualified because they're going to make too much money. So that's part of that bullshit bill that they shoveled through.
So yeah, I agree with that part of it, and I admit it. I'm way YT, right? I admit it. I lived in. I think living in California, there was a lot more diversity, and I loved the diversity. I really enjoyed the diversity. Going to UCLA, I loved the diversity of our college. Was extremely diversity. And I've since then lived in Colorado, which is very YT. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no denying that. And there are not a lot of rich and poor neighborhoods. Everybody pretty much makes almost the same thing, unless you're getting way out into the country or way out in the ends. Everybody pretty much makes almost the same amount of money. So it's there's none of that discrepancy, and it doesn't matter what color you are, you're still in that range. I mean, and I don't see it, and I get it from YT, but I don't see it as being, especially where I moved to. I loved it because when we moved there, there were three kids that were playing in this sandbox. One was Asian, one was African American, and one was my daughter. And they were playing each other as if they didn't care. They didn't, I mean, as far as they were concerned, they were just children playing. There was no racism.
Yeah,
And I
children don't
loved
have
that
that.
about them,
Yeah, children
right?
children never do that kind of shit. That has to be taught to them. And I always love it when MAGA hats prove my points about them. Someone named Wendy says, good, they need to work. See what I mean? Just compassionless,
Yep.
heartless, just
No
nonsense.
empathy whatsoever.
No empathy whatsoever. So I'm getting
And I
rid
admit,
of Wendy because that's disgusting. There are people
That's a
that are
good.
struggling. There's people that are struggling now, and they need these benefits to live, and they don't have the ability to work, otherwise they would. That's one of the biggest fallacies of these programs that are out there. People think that the vast majority of these people are lazy. They're not. There's all of the statistics prove this. The people who are able-bodied usually go out and get work, but there are people who cannot work for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's as simple as they have two aging parents that they have to take care of full time. You know, so the automatic assumption, like, yeah, good, they should work. That's just such horseshit.
yeah,
Well,
God.
actually, you know what they've proven? They've proven that only 5% of the people that receive Medicaid do not work or go to school. That actually, there a lot of recipients are obviously seniors or disabled, or people who have disabled children that they have to take care of full
Right.
time, or like you said, disabled. And these are people that are legitimately really working. I mean, whether they have a job, and at least in our state, they're recognized here. They are
well,
recognized as having a job that Medicare and Medicaid pay them to do to take care of those people. So they do have jobs. And so it to me it's just cruel. I mean, it is. It's just outright cruel to believe. And as one of the congressmen said, "Oh, just go out and get a job." And he said it with all honesty, believing that if they had a job, their employer would then pay for their insurance, right?
Right.
So they wouldn't need Medicare. But
but that's not always true.
you don't realize that 50% of employers do not pay for insurance. And so it
Exactly.
doesn't, we have 50% of the population who are considered the working poor, who are working one and two jobs and still qualify for Medicaid.
what what blows my mind in our society is we have this ruling class that wants the peasant, the common man, to work longer now. We've seen the discussions of raising Social Security from 65 to 67 to 70, blah blah blah, that stuff. Would it not make sense then that if you want somebody like myself to be in the workforce longer, would it not make sense to at least offer me just basic health care? I'm not talking about surgeries. I'm not talking about,
But why
all of
not,
the
though?
extra
Why
stuff
not
aside.
talk about
Well,
surgeries? Why not talk about
well,
everything?
see,
Why is America the only motherfucking developed country in the world that does not have this shit figured out?
Thank you.
the reason my point to that is sort of kind of like crossing that bridge. Let's take baby steps because the people
Fuck that.
that need to
No,
make these
no.
decisions.
I'm gonna say no to all of that shit. No, no, because here's the thing. You see that with a swipe of a pen, they can change everything
Well,
clearly,
this is true.
right?
Yeah,
So
right.
forget the incremental. Forget the. There are people. Look, let's just fucking call it what it is. Okay,
Sure.
we know for a fact how many lives USAID,
Oh my
sorry,
God. Yes.
saved on an annual basis. On average, roughly 4.5 million people are per year got to stay here on Earth because of USAID. Okay, and that's
Correct.
just one fucking thing. They're trying to shut down everything that supports people like this. So millions of people are going to suffer and end their lives in pain and agony and anguish for what? For
Nothing. You're
fucking
right. No,
billionaires
you're
to get a
right.
fucking tax break? Fuck that
Well, to get
shit.
their sixth yacht. No, I agree. And I guess what my point was it's amazing to me that the ruling class wants all of us to work longer, to be more productive, but at the same time, part of that production, part of the ability to work longer is to be able to be healthy. Am I right?
Yeah.
And
But their attitude is let them
they're
eat cake.
exactly correct. That's where we're at right now. Is, oh well, you're replaceable. We'll find somebody else once you keel over at the working away at the factory kind of a thing. And it's frustrating.
It's the
I mean,
metaphor of the
we're
Matrix. But before we continue, two things. Number one, folks, 45 people in here. Let's keep tapping that screen. Let's get the likes up. Sorry to have to keep doing it, but every night we got to dance for our supper, and TikTok only cares about likes and numbers of people listening and numbers of people commenting. So keep it going. Get the daily heart me. Get the gifts. Do all that shit. And I'd like to welcome Rumbles. How you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself, man?
I'm good. I'm just a little moist because I'm fat, but but other than that, I'm okay.
I was
so
going
I
to
wanted to
suggest
make
real
I
quick.
wanted
I apologize about interrupting. Reset your live goal, please.
Oh yeah, good
yes, please.
idea.
I was about to say that.
I'm bad with that shit. Danny's much better at this shit than I am. But
There is a function when you go before you go into live to set it to automatically keep redoing your goal every time
I'll
you meet that goal.
I'll
And
Where is
so
figure
that?
that out.
click that button, and that way it will automatically just regenerate for you.
Gotcha. I will
I
look at
was not
that.
aware that that was a function.
There you
Right.
go.
It's when you
Yeah.
go to set up before you go into your live, when you say you're going to live, right? You're going to do it live, and then you set up your different functions. That's one of the things when you set up your goal, there's a check mark you can check to set it up to repopulate it itself, and then you go into your live.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. It might be different because I've never seen that function in studio, but
Oh
I'm
no,
sure it
it
exists.
is
I
there.
just have to
Yeah.
find it. But thank you. I appreciate that tip.
Go under tools.
Gotcha.
And it's in there. So I also wanted to make the comment of people do not realize that 1/3 of active military are on food stamps. So when they cut the food stamps, they're cutting the food stamps for their own military. And people think, oh, we're just cutting food stamps for people who are just sitting in their basement and not working. But it doesn't work that way for anywhere. When you cut away 50% of the food stamps, that cuts 50% of the food stamps for everybody. It doesn't just take certain people out. I mean, there's a small percentage, but in general, if you qualify, then you're going to get 50% less food stamps, which means the active military people are going to get 50% less food to feed their families because they don't make enough.
Yeah.
Shameful as that.
Yeah. And check this out. Like, this is one of the things that is just complete irony and completely baffling to me, that immigrants uh, that work and pay taxes, they support EBT, Medicare, Medicaid, Section 8, and Social Security, right? And we tell them, hey, come to this country, live the American dream, but you are not allowed to benefit from any of these programs. And the people who benefit the most are in red states. I read all these statistics a couple of weeks ago. It's overwhelmingly red states that take all of
Mm-hmm.
these programs that immigrants help support, and they're angry at immigrants because I've seen at least 1,000 comments from MAGA hats that think that all of these things that we're talking about will only affect the quote unquote illegals. And that's why they support this. That's why they think it's a good idea, because we're going to hurt just the brown people that we don't like. And meanwhile, the brown people are making their lives easier while you're making the lives of brown people harder for no fucking reason.
Yeah,
I
but you
think you're
notice,
right about that,
no,
Yoda. I think you're 100% right about that. And I live in Redneck, Indiana, and they voted for this crap.
Yeah.
yeah, but you notice how they know. You notice all these cuts, how they conveniently don't let them happen until after the midterms. They
Yeah.
Yep. So they
conveniently,
can blame the blue.
Yeah,
they
they're
There's a
conveniently,
reason for
dropping
that.
two things. So the the things that took effect immediately were the tax cut, the tax extension of
Tax
the
cut for the
tax plan,
reds. For the reds.
right? And of course funding for the largest now in law enforcement unit in America, which is the ICE, and
Right.
those things happen immediately, and that is that's why things are getting exponentially worse for immigrants right now because of that funding. But then I think a lot of the benefits, you're right, don't happen until right after the midterms, and then right after the 2028 elections is when the worst of it is going to drop,
So
and that's when they're all going to realize what they voted for, because they're not going to figure it out until then, because they're dumb.
Correct.
Both Medicaid and food stamps start first, and that's in 2026. Medicaid doesn't start until 2028.
Right.
Medicaid in some areas,
Right.
some programs. So, as pointed out to me recently, almost every state has what's called Medicare extension, but they don't call it Medicaid extension. It's called Cal this or Colorado that, and it's still Medicaid, but it's part of the Medicaid extension. That's going to be cut off in 2026. The rest of the Medicaid is what's going to be cut in after 2028, so they can blame it on the new people, right?
If we have an election again, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, that's where we're at with those right now, and that's where we're going to see the cuts.
And Jill said even in 2028 they won't get it. I happen to agree with you, because these are shockingly dumb people.
In my state, we have we don't call anything Medicaid that my state provides. We have things like My Care Ohio, Ohio Rise, Care Source,
Right.
but these are all programs that are based off the Medicaid system. And I've seen a flurry of people saying, "Well, I'm not on Medicaid. I'm on Care Source, so I'm not going to be affected," or "I'm on whatever, I'm not going to be affected." And they don't understand that the funding for these programs is Medicaid.
Yeah, that's like that MAGA hat who had a mic shoved in front of him and was saying, "I don't like Obamacare. I got the ACA."
ACA, yes, exactly.
You can't make this shit up. I saw the video
No, you
myself.
can't.
It's just dumb motherfuckers. Just they don't have
Well,
any
see,
understanding of anything.
anytime you have a conversation, you have to set a baseline. 50% of those MAGA hats got to be the dumbest people in the freaking world. They support and cheer for one of the dumbest MFers I ever saw in my life. He's got to be
Yeah.
so fucking
Yeah.
stupid. It's incredible. Here's a guy sitting across somebody from Liberia saying, "Ooh, your English is excellent.
Oh
You
yeah,
speak
that
No,
guy
worse
made a
than that,
video about how insulted he was about that.
worse than that, when he said it,
Hey,
he didn't use
English is
proper
the
English to
first.
say it. So
English is the
that was
first
even
thing.
more demeaning that he was saying it not using proper English. I mean, it was really that bad. It was like some ignorant, person saying, "Oh, you speak good English,"
Yeah.
and you don't speak it yourself, obviously. So
I
that
got that
Obviously,
from I
coming
got
from a
that
guy.
bullshit for most of my life. Oh, you're so well spoken. And every time someone said that to me, I
Mhm.
wanted to say, "Hey, go fuck yourself. Why shouldn't I speak this well, you fucking asshole?"
But you're the
well,
president of the
I
United States.
said
How the
it to
fuck
you,
don't you realize
but,
that English is the first language of Liberia? Come on,
but
give me a
I,
break.
I've said that to you, but also I've heard you see, read Shakespeare, and you have a beautiful voice, and you have an amazing ability to speak and communicate, and it has nothing to do with your color or where you're from or anything else. You have a wonderful voice, and you project nicely, and you are very articulate, and that is
Thank you.
hard to find anywhere, anywhere
Right,
across
but
any,
that's not what those people were getting across. Because first of all, I don't recall you ever using the phrase "you're well spoken." I've heard you praise me in other ways, which I totally appreciate. But again, when you're a minority, you have to get very, very good at determining friend from foe and at determining purposeful racism from accidental racism, because otherwise you're just angry all day long, right? So I understood that these people were trying to give me a compliment, but their compliment was based in the faulty presupposition that I shouldn't speak as well as I do. And with that, Dr. Snuffle, how you doing?
Good evening, sir. How are you? Yeah, I think it's
I'm
the
excellent.
beard. That's why it's Will Smith.
Yeah. I don't know how much heavy lifting the beard is doing with regard to my speaking, but it does make me look pretty nice. This is actually the first time that I started growing this in October. This is the first time I've had a bald head and a full beard. The last
Great
time I had a
look.
beard was like 30 some odd years ago.
Yeah, it makes
It
your
is a good
face
look for you, sir.
Thank you.
in general, not you
And
specifically. I
so
don't think that's
the glasses, the beard, it's all, the fat, soft guy. It all works for me to give an impression.
Makes you look very professorial.
Thank you.
Hey, so are you guys talking about a specific topic, or can I pose a question? Or
Fire away, man. Pose your question.
so it's kind of a two-parter. I just recently heard about this Project 2028 that the Democrats have come out with. I don't know anything about it. I got to do some research. But has anybody heard about this, or the details, or how they came about it?
I heard it. I did not pay any attention to it, but I'm woefully ignorant on the subject.
Yeah, I'll look into it and maybe get back to you. But the main thrust of my question is, I'm thinking, my way of thinking here is that the people need to take over the Democratic Party. This is our party. We
Yep.
need to be the ones coming up with the plan of action for when we get power back. So, are you guys on board to kind of help develop this plan, or at least to be talking about it? And like, what are the highlights we can hit to, our most important to focus?
I'll answer for myself. I am not at all a believer in the idea that America is of, by, and for the people. It never has been, in my estimation. It's just propaganda that they sell us to nullify us. Because if you look at Gallup polls, like right now in the latest Gallup poll, which just came out, I think today, it says that 79% of Americans believe that immigration is a good thing. And yet, what are we doing to immigrants right now? Right? There's other polls that I've seen, some from Gallup and some from other recognized polling companies, that say that we agree on things like, should the people in the rainbow community have the right to marry each other? There's a great agreement on all sides, right? So when you look at these polls and you see that Americans mostly agree on hot button issues, and yes, they tend to be more lopsided to Democratic voters than they are to Republican voters, but still, when you look at all the numbers, there's this great overlap. If it were a Venn diagram, it would be just the edges of the two circles that weren't covered. We mostly agree on things, and yet our government is not representing us. They're not doing what we want. They're not doing what we believe in. They are not reflecting our values at all. They're just doing what enriches them and benefits them. So I would encourage everyone to be involved. I mean, I volunteer for a Democratic organization. I make content for them. I'm one of their team leaders, and I'm happy to do it. But I am way past the point where I believe that the citizens have any say in what goes on in America.
So we have the issues on our side. We just keep losing elections. So that's what I'm more trying to figure out, maybe how we apply this to winning back power to keep
But even
power.
when we
If
win elections,
Right.
let me just remind you that Barack Obama was president for 8 straight years, and did he codify Roe v. Wade? No, he did not. All right. Did he drop drones on innocent people? Yes, he did. So this both sides thing is another illusion. It's two sides of the same coin. It's not two completely different parties.
That's kind of my
They
point.
all have lunch with each other. They all have dinner with each other. They all fuck each other on the weekends. This is the reality of this. It's not Hatfield McCoy, people going at each other constantly. These people are friends, and they very often
Well,
carry out the same agendas.
Just keep it
and
real,
if I may,
Yoda.
real
Keep
quick,
it real, brother.
if I may, one thing that will cause the Democrats to keep losing is to call whatever their next big idea is to pick up the name from the MAGAs. Why would we call it Project 2028?
Exactly. This is
That
a great
that's what I'm
example of what
saying.
I'm
We need to
talking
come up
about.
with a genuine, a real, our own thing. Like trying to pick up off of that. That's not going to gain us any traction with any voters. All it's going to do is it's going to make voters go, oh, they're just trying to, go off the coattails of Trump. And it's like, guys, get your head out of your butts. Like,
I
come up
said
with
the same
something.
thing. There was this budding organization that never quite took off, but they had asked me to come in and work with them and do some content for them. And when they were showing me the initial slides of their thing, they were calling themselves something that like, oh, how to make America a great country. And I was like, make America great? Do you think maybe you should change the title to this shit? Do you think it doesn't sound like what Donnie Dump has been talking about for 10 years? Like, you got to be smart about these things. Words matter, strategy matters, and I think the Democratic Party is just out to fucking lunch these days.
That's kind of
Well,
my point. That's why I'm saying those of us who actually care about these things, who know what the better direction for the country is, need to kind of take back over the party. If it comes from the bottom up, that is the remedy to this problem, or one remedy to
I,
part
I
of the
wanted to,
problem.
well,
I wanted to
and so,
say,
something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Copy Bear. Go
no,
ahead.
I just want to say that that is the key. It's going in from the bottom up, having worked from the bottom up, right, in the Democratic Party. I can tell you that's really the key. Taking over all of the state Senate seats, the state House seats, your council seats, doing everything you can to mobilize that and work your way up is going to be the key, because you can get rid of gerrymandering, or at least even gerrymander towards our direction, if you can take over those seats. And that's what the Republicans did to get to where they're at, and that's what we need to do. We need to go through and do that,
Well,
and more
and
people need to volunteer for that.
I just want to
something that
say
I
something
haven't
real quick.
seen.
I
But
have
yes,
been
sir.
hearing this all my fucking life. Okay? It's just around the corner. It's coming. If we just do this, this, and this, it's all gonna come. And I hate to be this asshole, but I gotta stand on the truth. I've been hearing this rhetoric for as far back as I can remember. And I know it's genuine. I know it's how people really believe, and I know it's what people really want. But the fact is that we, the people, do not have power in this
It's a
country
constant fight.
beyond
It's a constant
trying to
fight.
do things like disrupt commerce, which is, I mean, look how hard it is. Look how hard it's been so far just to get to that 3.5% threshold of people moving in the same direction, protesting in the same direction. As bad as it's been, since January, we still have not mobilized to that magical 3.5% number. And and maybe we will, and I hope we do. But I've been hearing this shit for a very long time that kumbaya is right around the corner.
I'm not saying
Nobody's
that.
saying that. Yeah,
I'm,
it's a
I'm
constant battle, and we're way behind.
And we are. We're just way behind in doing this, and we need a lot more people who are willing to volunteer for their local places to be able to get somewhere to do something. And that's all I'm saying. And what is this magic 3.5 number or whatever it is? I didn't understand.
Okay. So, when you study the last roughly 100 years or so of protests around the world, the ones that succeeded had one thing in common. Well, two things. The vast majority of them were nonviolent. I think something like 70+% were nonviolent, but also these protests involved at least 3.5% of the country's population.
Well,
Yeah, I think they want us to give up and like just say, yeah, we know it's shitty. We know it's been hard. We know we've been working towards something and losing ground. And that's where they have us like just give up. So cede all of our power to these guys and let them have it. But we just can't do that. So
I agree with that part because that's where my cynicism meets its end. Is that I refuse to capitulate. I refuse to give up. That's why I still do volunteer work. And I never discourage anybody from doing it. But again, what I'm expressing is just really my frustration at the fact that I'm tired of hearing this rhetoric and not seeing the results. I just would love to see the results of it.
Yoda,
Well,
can I
see,
ask you something on this topic?
Of course.
Um, Malcolm Nance, you know who he is, right?
I've heard the name. I don't recall much about him now.
He's a military guy. He goes by the spy, black man spy, Malcolm Nance. He's been to Ukraine, volunteered to do that. He's very outspoken. He's on Substack. You know who Joy Reid is, right?
Yes.
Well, Malcolm Nance and Joy Reid were in conversation, and uh, Joy Reid was suggesting that the people on the bottom have to rise up and take the bull by the horns, so to speak. And Malcolm Nance was suggesting that Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, everyone of notoriety, leaders that we know, have to stand up and speak out and speak against the administration. And Joy is saying, no, the people have got to stand up and push back against what's going on.
yeah,
So where do you fall on that?
once that happens, all these other people will definitely join the party, but we have to make it happen.
well, that's not gonna. That's not. Look, everybody has to come. Everybody has to come to the realization that it's not about blue or red or rural and urban. It's about people with money and people without money. And once you concentrate on that, we're falling into an oligarchy here in the United States of America.
very
And
much so.
a great number of people, because of lack of education, are not going to realize that, and it's going to be very hard to get them over to a side, if you will. Okay.
You know who I think speaks most eloquently to that is Reverend Dr. William Barber.
Yeah,
You
from the
know who he is?
Poor People's Campaign.
Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I don't think
So you say
I've
that there,
checked him out, but go ahead.
you say that there is no example of working from the bottom up to change the politics. And if you know anything about Colorado, you will know that 30 years ago, Colorado was almost completely Republican. And we had the campaign that everybody start volunteering, whether it's just your local, circuit thing, close to your house, council, whatever it was. And we have almost completely flipped, almost not completely, but we're working on it, flipped Colorado because people went out of their way to work with their neighbors to take over and volunteer for those positions, to fight for those positions, and work together with the Senate and the House to overturn laws, even federal laws. Now we're working at overturning because we started at the bottom up, and maybe go further than that. And I would hope that other states would take Colorado's lead on that.
Well,
I
there's a
acknowledge
new
all of those
movement.
things. I mean, I've
There's a new
seen I've
movement.
seen these things. I know they exist at a local level, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this rhetoric has been going on about America since I can remember, and yet nothing has changed. It's literally gotten worse over the decades. Okay, all the things that people were complaining about in the 60s have all gotten worse. Income disparity is worse, race relations are worse, I mean, and some things have gotten better in terms of lifting people out of poverty, in terms of healthcare. There are a lot of good statistics, but I'm focused on the way the government works has not changed. And folks, this panel is giving us gold. It's sparking great conversation. Please tap the screen to acknowledge them and help me out, of course. And I still have 30 roses left on my life goal. If anyone feels so compelled to be generous and knock that out, I'm loving this conversation, and I appreciate what everybody is bringing to it.
If I may, I just recently listened to a podcast where I believe is U.S. Representative Ro Khanna. I
Hmm.
apologize if I'm butchering his
Yeah,
name, but
from
No,
I
Texas.
believe
that's
that's right.
correct. That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. And he was asked, like, what is he doing to get out to reach out to the communities that voted red, that voted for Dump, that, and he gave a very generic answer, which again, this is kind of the uh, flaccid part of the Democratic Party right now, where he's like, "Oh, well, I'm having town hall meetings with Republican voters," and it's like,
Where are you going?
well, then they had asked him, like, well, what did they have to say? Like, what is their current opinion right now? And and his response was very vague. It was just, well, they're concerned.
Okay.
And the part that infuriates me
What?
is if I was to
Okay.
run
I know where you're
for
going.
you,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
the state, whatever, state
Okay.
house, whatever. My ideal town hall kind of meeting is I would have a whiteboard behind me and I would start off the conversation by saying, I want to hear your grievances, every single one of you. We're going to go around the room, we're going to write it all down on a board, and then we're going to analyze that. And once we analyze that, we're going to then I'm going to speak on those things, kind of thing. And I feel that, like, the engagement that is happening, whether it be at the state level, the local level, the federal level, whatever, the engagement with the public isn't there. Unfortunately, I've had to be called into city council meetings for other reasons, but there seems to be this just disconnect from the public versus the people that are elected. They have the elected officials already have their opinions set. They're going to listen to the public, they're going to let them speak, but then there's really no action taken on what those public people are, or what those people from the public are saying. And listening to Ro Khanna today, he then backtracked and was like, "Well, we need to get a lot more back into Silicon Valley. We need to not turn our back on things like Bitcoin and AI." And it's like, bro, yeah, exactly. Yes, okay, I see Yoda's face. Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Like, bro, you're people like me can't buy any Bitcoin. Like you understand? Like, this isn't something that the common American cannot afford. These are things that we cannot delve into. Like, I mean, there are people struggling to have a 401k right now, any kind of semblance of retirement. And yet here's this representative who's supposed to be very progressive, who's supposed to be, at the forefront of making change, and he just speaks as if he's one of these establishment politicians. And and things like that. It's very frustrating to see things like that.
You're reminding me of this film. If anyone hasn't seen this, I find this film hilarious. It's called Let's Go to Prison, and it stars
I
Dax
love that movie.
Shepard and Will Arnett. And I'm reminded of how they introduced the warden to the film, right? There's a bunch of new prisoners arriving to the prison, and they're all standing outside, and the warden comes out and he says, "I care about what you think. If there's anything, and I mean anything, that you are dissatisfied with, either with your facilities, the food, anything the guards are doing, and even anything that I'm doing, I'd like you to take a piece of paper, write out everything that is troubling you, neatly fold that piece of paper, and stick it straight up your ass." All right.
No,
That's how
absolutely.
I feel about town halls and whiteboards and all that shit.
Uh, yeah,
I have a
I
Unfortunately,
get
theory
you.
why that is, though, Yoda.
Go
I
ahead.
really do. I have a theory about why you think the way that you think and why that is an actual reality. I don't think it's just a figment of your imagination that our government doesn't work the way that the Constitution lays out. We, the people of the United States, you don't buy any of that, right?
Yeah,
I
I mean
understand why.
it's
And I understand
the
why it doesn't
evidence.
work.
There's propaganda, which is all the beautiful 18th century language in the Constitution and in the Declaration and in the Bill of Rights. All of that shit is wonderful. But remember, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, except the ones we own, of course. Not those men.
And the natives.
Right? And who was it that said if a and I'm paraphrasing, if if a people expects to be ignorant and free, they expect, you know, what never was and what never will be. And I think we're the most ignorant society.
And kept that way on
The
purpose,
most ignorant.
right? I mean,
I
that's not
agree with
accidental.
that.
That's not accidental. The education system is very purposeful. The education system in America is geared toward creating worker bees. It's got nothing to
Mhm.
do with critical thinking, with intelligence, with learning how to approach problems. It's just, can we push the buttons and flip the levers and make the shit that other people are going to buy?
By the way, the quote that she was bringing up is, if the nation expects to be free, or excuse me, if the nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects
Yes.
what never was and never will be. And that is from the great Thomas Jefferson.
Yes.
Yeah, the
So
forefathers had
it's
a lot of great quotes, actually. Even if they were fucked up in some ways, they did a lot of brilliant
Correct.
things.
So isn't the solution then ultimately to educate our fucking society?
So here's the thing, and I think it addresses your question. This is how I summarize it in my mind. I might be wrong. I'm wrong about a great many things, but it seems to me that the people who have the power and the resources and the ability to change the system are the very people who are currently benefiting the most from the system. So
Yep.
what we're asking essentially is, hey, all you people that are living high on the hog and loving life and being able to jet set around the world and being able to do all the street candy that you want and have all the depraved sex that you want, and never worry about the law because you control the law, and never worry about money because you control the money. Hey, give that all up, because we want things to be different. And it's funny because we are not even asking that you give up everything. What we're saying is, take your fucking boot off our neck already. That's all we're asking. Let us breathe. Let us live. Let us take care of our families. That's all the average American is asking. It's all the average person is asking anywhere in the fucking world. Just give us a fucking chance. Stop strapping us down with 200 pounds of rocks and then saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I
Yep.
agree, but can I push back on a
Feel
little
free.
bit?
Anything, anytime.
Because um, what you're saying is supposing that they have all the power and we have none of the power. And like we have to ask them to take their foot off our fucking or their fucking foot off our necks. No, fuck that. Fuck that, Yoda. Okay? That's the problem. And I see it, that's the same problem that I recognize with the union. Okay? Is you have this membership that doesn't even have the first clue that these union officials, these motherfuckers work for us. I don't work for them. They work for us, but we have no idea how to pull the levers of our own union. And it's the same thing with our government. It's our fucking government. We've just been sold this idea that they hold the power and they don't want to give up the power. Well, it's because we're so fucking ignorant. And I was guilty myself for the longest time. I had no clue about how our government worked. Not really. None.
Well, and if I may interject, I will say to Yoda bringing up the bootstraps quote. I thought growing up, I thought that was more of a modern idea. That I thought this was something that culminated maybe in the 90s, maybe in the 80s, something like that. And then as an adult, one night I'm sitting there on this deep dive of YouTube rabbit hole crap, and I came across a video of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I forget what date it was. I want to say it was like 1961 or 62. And there's a quote from him that I'll read. It says, "It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself up by his own bootstraps." That was from the early 60s. This is something that we've been dealing with as a society here in America forever, you know, and it really opened my mind to the fact that like the modern problems that we're having aren't modern problems. These are problems we've had to deal with for many, 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 many years.
Exactly.
And we're still dealing with these same exact problems where you have these people who are on their fifth yacht over in San Tropez having a little drink in the Riviera and all that stuff, looking to people like us on this panel and saying, you need to do better. You need to go to college. You need to do this. You need to do that. Bro, I don't have anything to do that with. That's the problem.
Yeah, that
Do you
phrase.
think that the majority of our population understands that the United States is the richest country in the world? Not by a little bit, by a lot. Do you think that the majority of the people in the United States
I
know
think the
that?
I think the majority
Yes,
of the
yes,
people in
I
the
do.
United States don't have a concept of money.
No,
Don't
but
have a
I, but
concept
I,
of
but
money and math.
when I ask people what's great about America, the first thing they say is money, and usually the second
Yeah.
thing they say is military. So yes, I do think that. But let's go a little bit further into the mythology of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. This was based on a Baron von Munchausen, who was written about in the 1700s. He actually pulled himself out of a lake by his own lapel, which of course you can't do in reality. It's a book, right? And
Yeah.
then that transmogrified to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It was always meant as sarcasm to illustrate something that can't be done. So the fact that it transmogrified again into literally pull yourself up by your bootstraps just maybe addresses that ignorance question a little bit. But let me ask you, what if we did a Thanos snap of the finger and everybody was fully educated in America? What do you think would change?
Well, I believe in principles, okay? I believe the heart of man is desperately wicked above all things. I think we are inherently selfish and self-seeking, but I also believe that if for those that really, really believe that, that makes us weaker. And the actually my way of thinking is the truly selfish way, because um, I think the only way that we survive is if we're together.
Well,
I
then
want
your
to.
argument kind of defeats itself, because if we were inherently selfish, we would not have survived. Because the only reason that human beings survived, especially when you consider the last ice age, 11,700 years ago, left less than 10,000 people on Earth, their method for survival revolved around cooperation, and our daily lives now revolve around the same thing. So I personally would disagree with the assessment that human beings are inherently wicked and inherently selfish, um, because the evidence suggests to me that that's not true.
That kind of affirms her statement, though. The selfishness is what created the community. The community being being the self-interest. That's why it's selfish, because people create a community to protect themselves.
Yeah, but
The more
community is antithetical to selfishness.
Not really. If it protects you, if it's in your interest to be in a community, if you're on your own, you're vulnerable. If you're in a community, you're not. I just want to add one other thing, kind of what you guys were saying before.
That makes
Like,
sense.
it's always been a ridiculously difficult struggle. The wealthy and the powerful have always had all the wealth and the power. It's been 90-10 at its best. It's the periods where we've actually made progress, because there have been periods of real regression followed by periods of real huge progress in a short amount
Sure.
of time, followed by that kickback, which is where
Right.
we are right now.
Right. The New
But
Deal is a
those
good
are
example of what you're talking about.
always
And then
led
once
by
Reagan
that
came
stuff,
in, he ended that.
always led by the people getting pissed off enough, the interest of the people becoming in the forefront, maybe a inhumanity issue that people could just no longer stand for being put in their face. But those things, the group getting together, the masses getting pissed off about how bad it is, are at the root of all those periods of progress, or most of those periods of progress. So that's what it's going to take. We've got to get pissed off enough to get involved enough to take back over, because we don't get anything without power. And like the courts, the presidency, they have had a really good plan to take that power and to keep it and to hold it despite their dwindling minority, and despite the fact that people do not like what they do. So we have to be smarter, better, work harder, and get pissed off enough to make it happen.
So
That's good
what
theory, but
happens
that's
if
good theory.
everybody gets pissed off enough? I'm curious, because that's usually where the story ends, is talking about the people need to rise up. But what happens if the people rise up?
I mean, the civil rights movement was people rising up and doing it the
Yeah,
right
and how
way.
many people got their lives taken from them during the civil rights movement
A
to
lot,
teach
exactly.
us
People are
that the
going to
civil
lose their
rights
lives.
movement was intolerable to the power structure?
Exactly.
Rise
It's
up
not
enough,
going to be
then what
easy. If it
happens is
continues this way, people
you get a
will lose
militia
their lives.
back down.
And what did the civil rights movement accomplish long term beyond a few new laws?
I mean, if you
2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's
It's more
always
like 2
been.
steps back, 1 step forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you
Yeah,
can
yeah, it's
fair.
absolutely right.
I mean,
That's
because
fair.
to me, American society has regressed since the civil rights movement ended. I don't see the progression from that point. So this is what happens. We get crumbs thrown at us once in a while. Once in a while, a leader comes along, like FDR, like Abraham Lincoln, and we get crumbs thrown at us, and things have been so hard for so long that we take those crumbs and are so grateful, but we don't realize that the big picture hasn't changed all that much. So, because people talk about the 60s like it was this magical fucking time of love and togetherness, and I invite you to go look at the long list of people who were whacked just in America
this
because
sounds
they
very
were
self.
because
Sounds
they were
very
talking because they were talking about peace, love, and togetherness. It sounds what?
This rhetoric sounds very self-defeating. That I'm hearing a lot from you tonight.
I don't care. I tell the truth, whatever it sounds. So
I
call it
think you're
whatever you
keeping it
want.
real, brother.
No,
I
it's and
don't
it's
think
fine. Call it whatever you want. You want to say it's self-defeating? Okay, it's self-defeating. But give me the answer then. What's the solution?
That's
Um,
that's the question that's been confounding me for a while.
Well, not
Was
just you, it's everybody.
my
go-
answer
Well, wait,
is
wait.
go-
Whoever said I was being self-defeating, please tell me what the answer is.
I think I've been pretty clear about that. I talked about the history of progress,
Mm-hmm.
what it takes, the fact that the only access to this is through power. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes us regaining power, and that
Mm-hmm.
power has to be based on the right actions that we take. Look at Project 2025. They had a 40-year
So what are the
history
right
of
actions? What
winning
we
the
had
court,
Clinton,
of
we
winning.
had Obama. What are the right actions that you're
They're not
talking
the
about?
saviors. They're not the saviors. So
So
they had
who
a 40-year
is?
plan. They had a 40-year plan of taking the courts,
I don't care
messing
what
with
they did. I
elections,
don't care what
messing
they
with
did.
elections. They're
What are the
successful.
solutions?
The problem here is that it's really despairing right now because they've been so successful. And that's what I'm saying. They had a plan, they are executing it to a T. Maybe we can learn something from their success. They've taken over the courts, they've taken over, changed all these laws, they've made it so much harder for people to vote. So, unless we have power at the state level, at the federal level, we will never change this. And the
And
only way
so
to power
what
it
does that power look like? Describe to me what that power looks like so I can recognize it when it finally comes.
it's not something that finally comes. It's not some glorious day when everything is fixed. Like I said, it's a constant battle, and
Okay.
it has to come
So
from the bottom up.
what does that battle look like?
Access to power is people in positions of power. So
And
they have the
and that
courts.
hasn't happened. That hasn't happened in America on several different
Yeah, we
occasions.
get a little power here and there. We get maybe a Senate and a House small majority, given the
And
fact that we have a
somehow it
lot of
doesn't all
artists on our
change.
team.
Somehow,
Exactly. Of course
even
not. Of
when we
course
have
not.
this power that
That's why
you're
you're
referring
self-defeating.
to, it doesn't all change. So
Of course not. Of
what
course not.
exactly has to, like, I want to understand the mechanics of your solution, because
There's no glorious.
you're giving me the rhetoric that I've heard a million times, and I'm not saying that to make fun of you or belittle you in any way.
I hear you.
But
I feel like you're putting words
what
in my
I
mouth.
want to know is what, like, because what you described I've seen, right? I've seen the right person get in office. I've seen the right administration get in office. All the people that promised us all sorts of stuff, and yet that stuff never arrives.
Right. So, like I said, there's not some glorious day where we get somebody elected and everything's fixed. Because our coalition requires that we have some people that think this way about an issue and some people that think that way about an issue. We're not going to get everything we want. The most important thing is that we get the people in power that will vote the way we want them to. And like I said, it's a constant battle. I'm not promising any glorious day where everything is fixed. I'm promising that we have to continue the push, that we have to get people elected, that we have to get better people elected, that this has to be long term and sustained, especially if we're going to get the court back before I die. And maybe my grandkids will be able to see this shift back in the other direction. It's a horrible uphill battle. We're way behind, but like the push has to begin in earnest now and keep on going forever. This is what they've been doing. Like I said, for 40 years, their execution has been to a T, culminating in Trump 2, the traitor Trump 2, Project 2025, never heard of it, enacted to a T by the Christian far right. Because they had a plan, because they executed it, they are getting everything they want, and what they want is us to never have power again. Never have power again, so we have to
Well,
push to get our power back.
my timeline is different than yours. You say this has been happening for 40 years. I say this has been happening since 1492.
So, Danny, can I throw something in there? Can I throw something in there?
Can I say something, guys?
Yeah, hold on. One at
Um,
a time. So, CompuBear, go ahead.
I'm afraid that if we follow history, and we get down to this, we went through the Depression and people starved and people died, and we were down to almost a 50-50 people who were employed and people who were homeless and starving. And out of that came the New Deal. And out of that came prosperity. But we ended up getting to the point where we were, as people, right, versus the industry people versus the rich, we were so desperate that we had to push back, and we finally came together and found someone to push in the New Deal. And I'm afraid, I really am afraid personally, that we're going to have to get back to that point, that we're going to have to get back to the point where we're going to be starving before we riot up, and can take back over, in the way things are going. But that's just my opinion. And I still am the optimist that I still work in my neighborhood, in my town, to believe in a program called Housing First, because you were talking about bootstrapping and there's no way to pull you up. When you get to that point where you're homeless, you have no ID, you have no place, you can't get a job because you have no place to live, and everything's dependent on having a place to live to get out of that hole of being homeless and not having any food, no matter how much Medicaid or food stamps you have. And I think if we could put more programs together like that across the nation, that we as a people would be better people. But that's just my opinion.
And I just want to say thanks for the conversation. I want to say good night. Thank
Oh,
you, Yoddah.
have a great night,
And
man. Thanks for joining. I
yeah,
appreciate your feedback.
Good night, Jude.
all you guys, be well, be safe, and don't give up.
All right. Where's Jude? There it is. Okay, so who else?
You know, unfortunately, I think we're already at that point um, where we're going to see ourselves in another, what's the word I'm looking for here? Depression. We're already at that point. Um, there's so many people say that they're hiring, but they're not hiring. People are losing more jobs every day. The cost of living, or the cost of living doesn't go up, or the cost of living continues to go up, but a living wage does not go up along with the cost of living. And then with this new bullshit act that just passed, there's so many people that are on the verge of losing insurance. My wife is on disability. She was born with deformities of her arms. She's on the verge of losing her insurance right now. My job does not have insurance, does not cover it, and I make too much money at $15 an hour to be able to get insurance. So then what happens with my children? We're in the same boat, and it's a reoccurring boat year after year after year, and I don't think that we're ever going to get any better.
Understood.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
I want
very
to
difficult
suggest to you,
position.
look into CHIP for your children. One of the most amazing women in the world was the woman who does all the rules for the Senate. And she specifically said, no, you cannot include CHIP in this big, beautiful bill. And she took it out because she wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, all of the children still had health insurance. So look into CHIP, also because it is technically a private thing, and you pay like $2 a month, and your children are insured. Therefore, it means that it's an insurance that you're paying into, and so it couldn't be taken away, as you could take away Medicaid, because it's not something that they're giving us. It's something that you're paying into. So if you have children in those situations, look into CHIP.
Yeah. The way, I mean, they've just made it too hard. That's what I see. Like most people I've ever known in my life had no problem with the idea that they had to work and pay their way through life in order to take care of themselves, their family, whatever their situation was. People were fine with this paradigm that was set up in America, which is like, hey, you trade your time for money, and in the end, that trade is going to keep you safe and fed and take care of your loved ones. And they have slowly stripped that away from us to where it's just, there's this huge uncertainty for people that are paying attention and know what we're about to step into, this is a very unsettling time. Just knowing, like, wow, am I going to have benefits? Am I going to have a job? Like, nobody knows. And uncertainty is very stressful.
It's getting worse and worse rapidly, and it's looking like it's going to go down a very, very dark road that I don't think most people expected. So, hopefully a few people will wake up, but, we just have to, enough people have to get fed up. That, like, if we can get the right people elected, we can actually pass some of this legislation. And, like, we know that the accumulation of wealth at the top is kind of at the root of a lot of these problems politically in society. The dismantling of the middle class, the accumulation at the top, with the wealth goes all the power. And we've got to figure out how to gain that power back with the little power we have now, and kind of try to reorganize the system in a way that benefits regular people.
It was going
Bottom
back
line
to,
is,
back to 90% tax on the wealthy and corporations. When Reagan changed that and dropped that down to 35, you can see the huge disparity at that point where it separated between the income that people made and what they were expected to achieve. And it just gets further and further apart. And at the same time, it went from the average man making almost as much as the CEO, to the CEO now making 2,000 times what his average worker makes. And so those two disparities changed, and you can just see it on every graph from that moment that Reagan took office and changed that tax rate, that all of that changed. And in what they called trickle down economics, but it never trickled down. And there's so many reports on it. So if you want to say, what do we have to do to get back there? We need to go back to that. We need to tax the corporations and the wealthy and start putting back into our thing, making stuff more equal. So CEOs only make a small percentage more than the average person's making.
you
I,
took the
I'm
words right out of my mouth, because that's exactly what I was going to say.
I'm 40 years old. I'm still waiting for trickle down economics to trickle down to me.
It never, I'm sorry, I hate to bust your bubble, but it
No,
will never
I know.
happen. And more studies have said this. I don't know how to educate the MAGA or educate these people on
Well,
how really that doesn't work. And we're now talking about trickle down economics on steroids, and they think that that's going to work even better. And I don't know how to teach these people it. Maybe I'm just getting too old, but I don't know. I remember what it was like before then, and I don't know how to teach these people how we can get back there.
well,
It's
just as a perspective, real quick, my father in 1985 made a meager $13 an hour at his job. That $13 an hour is equivalent to 38.84 an hour today. I'm in one of the highest paid positions in my union, and I don't make that amount of money. My dad did a menial job, like he was he had just started out, and that's what he was making in 1985. And I'm sitting here as somebody who's worked for my local community for 23 years now, and I am at one of the highest paid positions in my union, and I'm still making less than what he did in 1985.
Because of
I
the labor movement that we had any of that. That the little bit we have left was gained by the hard work of fed up people at the bottom pushing for more power and good reform.
Well,
The labor movement.
they didn't do a good job. Let me end by talking about Reagan for a moment, because
Yes.
he is a mystery to me. And what I mean is this: Republicans love him, absolutely love him, and yet he did so many things that they hate. And I listed these out a few years back. So he raised taxes, right? Lowered in his first year, but then literally each year after that, because he exploded the deficit after he lowered taxes, he had to raise them for the next 7 years. I think the debt went up something like 300%, something like that. Yeah, it went from 300 million to 900 million, which sounds like nothing now, but back then that was a big deal. and he gave clemency to almost 3 million undocumented aliens, which they hate, right? They absolutely would not tolerate that now. He enacted control over weapons, which they hate. He used the selling of street candy to fund the Iran-Contra engagement, making him one of the biggest street candy dealers in American history, ironically. And he also weighs a WAR against the very thing that he was selling, which is kind of interesting. And last but not least, he negotiated with terrorists. That's kind of wild that they love him despite all those things. Does anybody understand why the right wing loves Reagan the way they do?
Yes, I do. Because one, he was a movie star. We go back to the same thing that attracted the people attracted to Trump for. He was a movie star. He was a known commodity, right? He had a known name, no name recognition. He created this image of the cowboy, right? The freedom cowboy that is free and independent and kind of harkens back to the 1800 West when everyone was free to do whatever he wanted, and he created that kind of freedom atmosphere and that propaganda. He created the propaganda that he was going to do away with welfare because you had the idealistic welfare queen at the time. So he created this image of what the welfare queen was, what she was receiving, although it was only one person at the time. But she, that's what he created, right? And so everybody was gung ho to jump on the bandwagon of one quote lowering taxes, and he did. I mean, he lowered taxes from 90% to 35%. So in that respect, yes, he had to raise them up again. But you're asking what was the initial, what did they initially see him for? Why did they initially vote for him?
No, I
Because he
understood what they were attracted to at the outset, totally. But what I don't get is why now, in hindsight, knowing what he actually did, they still revere him. Because I think someone talking like him in the party right now would be laughed out.
Because he made people believe in trickle down economics. He made people believe that if people became more wealthy, if the richer corporations, if all of that became more wealthier, right, that money they would be able to open more jobs, they would have more, everyone would have more opportunity. It was this whole climate that he created that made people believe that they could be a part of it, that they had the opportunity to become a part of that, because all this money and all these jobs and all this economics and everything was going to open up the way by dropping the money for the rich, and it just turned out worse because the rich
So
just
as I like to say, the propaganda works most of the time, if not more. So I'm going to go ahead and end. You folks have been spectacular. I love the conversation tonight. Tomorrow night is usually chill Saturday chill, relaxing vibes, but who knows where the conversation will go. But my goal is that on Saturdays we relax and have a good time. But I really love this conversation. Thank you so much, all of you, for participating. Thank you for the folks in the chat who gave roses and likes and all that other good stuff and shared the live out. I really appreciate that. Good night, everybody. Peace, love, and granola. Talk to you soon.
As long as we don't talk about The Godfather tomorrow.